just take you through both those responses, because as always, we don't just, if you run only one question, it's unfair. When you run both, in the interest of transparency, you're showing all that there is to show. So I'll show you first who's perceived as being the most popular chief minister pan-India, and then we'll see how they are assessed within their own states. So I'll start with the listing of top chief ministers on a pan-India basis. Here, Yogi Adityanath has a massive lead over all the other chief ministers. 33% of the respondents pick him, whereas the likes of Arvind Kejriwal have less than half his popularity at 14% national popularity recall. Mamata Banerjee comes in third at 9, Stalin from Tamil Nadu comes in at 5, Chandrababu Naidu makes an entry at 5%, which is interesting because he just got sworn in and has come broken straight into the top 5. So big one there for Chandrababu Naidu from Andhra Pradesh. Now there are frankly two ways of interpreting this data. One is that Yogi Adityanath, on the back of the Lok Sabha election, has actually come down from 46 to 33. That's 13% down from the last MOTN, which was in February. Kejriwal has fallen from 20 to 14. So that's ever since he's been in jail, he's clearly lost some public sheen nationally. He's come down 6% from 20 to 14. Mamata Banerjee, on the back of a good performance in West Bengal, has gone up just marginally from 8 to 9. Stalin from 6 to 5, and Chandrababu Naidu, the big new entrant in the list of top 5. But if you just look at the stacking of chief ministers, it's very clear that by a long shot, Yogi Adityanath, the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh, is Baba number 1. He's chief minister number 1 in the country at this moment. Of that, there seems no doubt. So Rajdeep, yes, there is the size effect. Undisputedly, Uttar Pradesh has 80 seats. But that's also reality. I mean, it's much tougher for the Chief Minister of Sikkim to become a pan-India player than it is for the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. That's just reality.
Because when you're going to now soon after show your second takeaway, most popular CM in home state, you're going to see the same Yogi Adityanath actually falling sharply. My worry is, in the age that we live, someone will take the graphic that you've just shown and say, look at Yogi Adityanath, his popularity has increased. When you show the second graphic about popularity in home state, he's declined. Which one will you show? Because
but both are true.
In my view, one is misleading.
You were very excited about the Rahul Gandhi numbers. Now this you are not excited about. The numbers are what they are. Rahul Gandhi going up from 11 to 22 got you really excited. Those numbers were the gospel.
If you do not show the second number, then your argument is right that this alone would be misleading.
Okay, fair enough. But then let me just answer your question. I think it's very clear. Yogi Adityanath is seen, particularly among a large section of the core BJP voters, as a generation next leader. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt. In fact, there was a huge demand even in the 2024 elections for Yogi Adityanath to come and address rallies. Far more, after Narendra Modi, the highest demand for any leader, ask any MP, was for Yogi Adityanath to come. So he has clearly established himself even beyond UP as a leader that the BJP's flock in particular wants. He faces the same challenge, I think, that Rahul Gandhi will face. How do I attract the non-core BJP voters, something that Mr. Modi successfully did between 2012 and 14. Can Yogi Adityanath do that?
No, but there is very simple.
One more similarity to Rahul Gandhi's equation over here. You mentioned the numbers went up from January MOTN to now only because of the electoral success of the Congress, perceived electoral success of the Congress. I think the drop of Yogi's number also have to do with his perceived electoral debacle in Uttar Pradesh.
Sure.
So it's also about the winnability factor. When you were sending 60 and 70 Lok Sabha members, you were seen as the kingmaker. When you come down to 30 or 32 seats, then the numbers start going down. Number one. Second important one is the entrance within few months of Chandrababu Naidu, and which is a very critical one, because I think the perception of the development-based politics, there is still quite yearning for that among the masses, because Chandrababu Naidu was the poster boy of the development-based politics in India, and that kind of branding, paying him even after a gap of 5 years and returning to power, and he had his historic mandate. But what I'm simply trying to say, chief ministers, if they do a good developmental politics, like Naveen Babu for that matter, in the next one you will see, he reigned for almost like 8 years on #1 positioning as far as the perception within the state is concerned. you will do good. And someday you
Yogi
should do a
Adityanath is
very
not
good case,
just-
Rajdeep, comparing growth of Odisha under Naveen
But
Patnaik.
Yashwant Deshmukh, Yogi Adityanath is not just at the back of Hindutva, because he's also perception-wise is what I'm saying. When you go across the country, his perception is of being a key lawmaker. Now, whichever way you look at how he meets up, follows that. But the fact is, he's looked at somebody who's a very good lawmaker.
No, I think
Yes, go ahead.
just to explain,
Yeah, just a
sorry,
minute, yes.
just one point I'll just make, just to explain the drop that is happening also there. I think in the first term that he had, he successfully pursued the hardline Hindutva and was seen, in fact, Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah was seen as slightly less, hardline as compared to the way Yogi did it. So he benefits
Law
from
and
that.
order,
Second, law and order, he brings, a certain modicum of that into the state. A very difficult state. Let's not forget that Uttar Pradesh is the largest state. So there's a lot of marks for him on that. As he comes into the second term, the more important issue of economic development begins.
Yeah.
So while the image of him being the hardline Hindutva leader persists, and quite rightly, I mean, I disagree in the way Rajdeep argues in a different way, saying that a state leader has to also importantly now be seen as in the national stage. For competitive reasons, for international reasons, they're competing with everybody else. So it's good to have a state chief minister who's also image-wise nationally known. And the final point on this is in terms of the contrast that you're seeing, and that's a very important point, which I think Rahul will show in the next chart, is that also is a great barometer. You not only have to be great outside, perception-wise, but within your state, if you don't, you're going to lose the election, because that's where it really matters. So you have to do both.
Sure.
You have to nationally as well as statewide.
I think this is where the Act 2 of Yogi should have started by now. It is already getting late. Act 2 means he needs to be seen in as a social justice masiha, again, because a lot of accusations were coming in that it was only Thakurwad that is happening. He needs to come out of that mold. Largely it is perception driven, but you need to be seen not just as a law and order person, because the low base effect was there. You've gained all the political brownie points that you could. But here onwards, if you do not have an Act 2, Act 3, the way Prime Minister Modi had when he was a chief minister, he quickly ensured that the law and order state affairs change in Gujarat, then he gets on to the developmental bandwagon, then also onto the nationalistic bandwagon, and thereafter onto an international. He did all of these acts while he was the chief minister. The problem with Yogi is that he doesn't have the team. He's too dependent on the bureaucrats there. He doesn't have the team around him to actually help him navigate from one act to the next act very quickly.
And he has to show an
this
economic vision.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the
he's
next
shown
act
a
is about
ability to
economic
bring
vision.
order, but the economic vision, which
It has
is
to be a
attracting.
complete package.
But
Yeah.
let's
Exactly.
also,
So that is where he's
so
lacking.
while
and
we're
this is where he
spending
needs
so
to
much
capture the
time,
imagination.
Sanjay Jha, talking about who's leading the pack, let's also for a moment look at who's missing in the top 10. There is not a single Congress chief minister in the top 5. Siddaramaiah comes in at 7, and he's the only chief minister, and that too at 7 years, 2.7% popularity. So you've got a situation where the likes of Kejriwal, Mamata Banerjee, Stalin, Eknath Shinde and Chandrababu Naidu have far higher popularity pan-India than Siddaramaiah. So the Congress, this whole question of what's your model, okay, so you don't like what the BJP is doing, but aap kya karoge? That doesn't seem to be finding resonance nationally. You don't have any Congress chief minister in the top 5.
Well, Rahul, two short points. Number one, I agree with you that the Congress should actually work on making model states of governance, which addresses everything from economic, social, hiring people for jobs, education, health parameters. Make a whole checklist on which people will really judge you, what you normally probably put up in an election manifesto. If the Congress really, I felt also should have, even in its earlier avatar, put down the Nyay in operation so that people could see what a Congress could do at the central level. Having said that, a little diversion, but that's critical, that under Mr. Modi's government, and this is not some kind of a lame duck excuse, cooperative federalism has been dealt a very lethal blow. And it's not just about, the political points. It's about how resource allocations are done, how tax kind of collections are distributed, if at all, on time. Look at West Bengal. They had to beg for Manrega dues. Others like Karnataka suffered because even for distribution of food grains, the central government was putting hurdles on the way. So I think we have a fundamental fault line in terms of how Mr. Modi's double engine Sarkar actually operates by putting pressure on non-BJP states while playing favorites with their own. And look at that one number, Rahul. That's a glaring number. The allocation of sports budgets to Gujarat and Uttar Pradesh compared to those states like Haryana and Punjab where you're winning all your medals. I mean, these things are far too brazen and we need to discuss them.